15 years ago, I could have never imagined that I'd be here in Raleigh with y'all tonight, because 15 years ago, I called Los Angeles home, and I was a proud Angelino. I was Miss LA. I was singing along to Tupac Shakur's song, you know the one, "To Live and Die in LA." I decided that I really wanted to live in the city that I called home. Sorry if I'm not keeping this up right. And to experience the city, I had to ask myself, well, what did that look like? What would I do? What did I want to feel? And the answers just kept coming up to simple things. I wanted to feel good. I wanted to feel inspired, in awe even. And so that led me to going deep into art museums, seeking out coffee shops and restaurants that felt really immersive through their food, but not just their food, but through the interior decor and the ambiance that they gave. And also retail destinations, stores and craft markets where I got to engage with objects and meet the makers and discover objects just tangentially. So I went all over the town, all over town. I say town now because I live here, but Los Angeles is massive. And I was not too lazy to leave my neighborhood, nor was I too proud to leave my neighborhood. If it was interesting and it spoke to me, I was driving the distance. I was there. So over time in doing this, I became the go-to person for my friends for what was next, what was happening, what was new. And in doing that, I got to learn a little bit about myself, and I found this wine bar that I loved, and I just kept going back to. I had the right music, the right lighting. I had cool projections on the wall, which is a really big thing, film projections, which is a very big thing at the time in LA. And one night, I picked up this really handsome man, and that handsome man became my partner in crime. We did everything together around LA, and we started traveling together. And 2 years into our relationship, he gets offered a job in London, and he asked me to go with him. Now, Miss LA gets a little freaked out, because at that moment I realized that, yes, I'd always wanted to travel, and I was starting to travel. It was always going to be part of my life, but live somewhere else? I mean, I was ready to live and die in LA, and nothing else. I hadn't thought about it. But I knew that that wasn't a reason to stay. That wasn't a reason to not go. So I asked myself again, what do I want to feel? And that was, I wanted to feel joy, love, expansion. And those were all things that I felt with him and had with him, and where we lived didn't matter. The second thing I asked was, what would my mom say? And what she said was, go. Go have an adventure. You can always come back. And this was expected of her to say, and easy for her to say, because she and my dad had had many adventures, two of which took them to international moves. They were, their native country is Colombia, South America. And when they were 18 and 19 years old, they moved to Australia, starting from scratch, little to no money, no job prospects. They left their professions behind, left their family behind, and started over, and had my sister and I there. We moved back to Colombia for a bit, and then when I was 4 years old, we moved to Los Angeles. Again, they were starting over from nothing, with very little, and this time with 2 kids. So their starting point, in contrast to my starting point, where I was and what was ahead of me, was very different. So I said, yes, let's go on this adventure. I could always come back. Off to London we went, and it was just so impactful. My mind was blown. I thought Los Angeles was international, but London, oh my gosh. I'd never been in that part of the world. This was my first time in London, first time anywhere near Europe. And also the fact that it was so old. I mean, the architecture, the culture, the traditions, things were so old, but yet it was still so modern. And so I was really impressed and amazed with how they bridged everything and made everything feel contemporary, no matter how old it was. So we were there to move. We moved there, found a home, and I got really into discovering the city through making our home. And in doing that, it meant a lot of shopping. And not a lot of shopping, because we had a tiny flat, and we were there for who knows how long. It could have been 2 months or 2 years. We weren't sure. So anything we bought was very considered. But I got to experience the joy of making a home. My little homemaker hat, really, I knitted that out of nothing. And it was a really interesting experience. But also, and through shopping, I got to know the city. Because I would pick a neighborhood several times a week. I would pick out a different neighborhood, take the tube and the bus there, get off and just wander. I'd pop in and out of stores. I would meet shopkeepers and learn about the area. And through the objects and clothing and whatever was on display, whether it was old or new, I got to learn about the local culture, to see what local designers and artists were making, what they were using, what textiles, what patterns and forms were prominent in that area, in that community, or the whole country. So I learned a bit of history and contemporary kind of aesthetics along the way. And all of that, it was so fun to do. I just had to capture it as well. So I had gotten a new Rebel T2i DSLR camera that I had just hanging on my shoulder at all times. I was always ready to take photos. And I got really into sharing those photos on my personal blog. And the blog was there so I could share with my friends and family back in the States what I was doing, learning, discovering. And I got really into writing about all those things as well. And because I got into the blog, I decided to teach myself how to do just basic graphic design and HTML and CSS coding so that I can make it more mine and customize it as I desired. And eventually I became I got really into the idea of making all of that a business of some sort. So I turned my new skills, digital and graphic skills and whatnot, into and paired that with shopping at vintage flea markets, because there's some great flea markets, because I wasn't able to buy all those things that I was finding, but I loved the discovery of it. I didn't need every brass tchotchke, but I believe that somebody in the States could find it interesting and they might want it, and it could be just the thing they wanted. So I set up a website. I called it the Pond Market, and I sold things that I was discovering at flea markets all over London and in Europe when we'd go on holiday. A year into living in London and discovering and exploring and getting to experience it through shopping and creating things digitally, my now fiance, he gets a job offer this time in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And I had just had an emotional breakdown in the middle of the street in winter when I was just trying to feel some warm sunshine on my face. I had no idea that I needed what is it called, the sun lamps? No idea, but I was from Southern California and had never lived in a place like London before, so it hit me so hard. So between the excitement of moving to Southeast Asia for what that could be, and knowing that I needed some more sunlight and warmth in my life, it was an easy yes for me, and it was an easy yes for my husband. So we moved to Malaysia, and it was night and day from London. It was just warm and light, and as much as I love London, Southeast Asia was definitely more my climate. And we got to live in this tower, this modern apartment tower with a pool and a gym. It was so different from our tiny, very expensive flat in London that was dark and cold. And so all good starting points. And I decided, and really what we're there to do is we wanted to live there like we were on vacation, because we'd never been to Southeast Asia. Being in the States, it's so far away. So once you're there, then you can play. So we decided we were going to play, even though my husband was working like crazy. I decided to keep the blog going, but I closed the Pond Market because I didn't feel like trying to pivot that and make it work in Southeast Asia. The British and European flea market finds just were not going to happen in Southeast Asia. And I stay focused on the blog and sharing what we're doing. And what we're doing a lot is swimming, going to beaches on the weekends, and I'm swimming in the pool. I'm using our new gym. I hadn't worked out in years, and I had this new ring on my finger because we were newly engaged. And I have these new needs for wanting to protect my ring. I didn't want to take it off. I wanted to keep my ring on my finger, but keep it safe from falling off in the ocean or getting damaged while I'm working out. So I looked for a product. Long story short, I did not find it, so I decided to make it. I invented a whole new product that's never existed before, and I prototyped it on a dining room table. It was total cottage industry style. I've got lots of stories about getting neoprene from the mall laptop store to schlepping it from Australia while we were on holiday. So I created this thing that never existed, and again, it came from these experiences I was having, from the way we decided that we wanted to live in Malaysia and take the opportunities to live there. And I got to create this business and apply these things that I discovered in London, skills with digital, with graphic design and web coding. And along the way, I just realized that I was making a home wherever I was and creating things. So we were there for almost 2 years when my husband it was time for him to leave his job. It just wasn't a right fit anymore. But we were ready to live there for a long time, so it was a tough decision, but we did it, and we went back to LA. And not because we missed LA. It was because all of our stuff was in LA. We had put everything into a storage unit right before we moved to London, and it was time to decide what's next. Where's our stuff going to go? We want a permanent home now. We don't want temporary living situations anymore. And we were ready to start our family. And what we wanted out of our home was more calm. We wanted more green space. We had just done these major cities for so long and lived in major city centers. We were always in the heart of everything. But we weren't ready to make a giant leap. So we thought, let's find a good city that is slow paced, has access to green space, is calm, but still has a good urban core. And Raleigh was it. And we had no family, no friends, no connections here, but we did have a condo here. That's another long story. But at least what that meant was that we had a home to call home immediately. So we put everything in a truck, moving truck goes ahead of us. We buy a car on Craigslist for like $6,000. It's, 10 years old at that point, and we still have it now, so it's super old. But we just road trip across the country, and that was its own little adventure. And we started a whole new adventure in life when we stopped in Nashville, I confirmed my hunch that I was 1 month pregnant. So by the time we moved to Raleigh, I'm just ready to nest. And not just because I'm pregnant and I'm ready to make our home, is that I was excited to finally have a place to call ours and have all of the stuff that we had in storage that we still loved and found useful, and then have the possibility of bringing in more things that can make our home special for us, especially now that we were expanding our family. So I get started on looking around, just like I did in London and I did in Kuala Lumpur, where are the places that I go to find the things for our new home? And I realized that there was an opportunity to bring in the kind of products that I was looking for that I discovered in other places, as well as the kind of retail experience that I fell in love with in other places. I thought there was an opportunity to bring that to Raleigh. And I wanted to find a way to contribute to the growth in Raleigh. We live in downtown Raleigh, and I was really excited about what was happening in the community, so I wanted to find a way how to do that. And I've always been in retail in some shape or form, and owning a store, having a store was always a dream of mine, but it was kind of one of those things like, oh, that'd be nice to do someday. But it just felt like the day was today when we moved here. So I opened the store. I stopped doing Ring Cozy for a lot of reasons. It's still a beautiful baby of mine. But it was time to move on to something else, and the new thing was a store. So in December 2015, I opened Port of Raleigh. It was mostly a home goods store, and it focused on modern design objects from around the world. And my daughter was 6 months at the time. So all at once, I had two very big, important babies. I had a new retail business, brick and mortar business, that was so different than anything I'd ever worked in before, either employed or created on my own from my computer, comfort of home, my own time and space. And I had a new baby. I was a new mother. I was a new parent. And that had its own whole set of challenges and experiences because it's all so new. So the first 2 years were really challenging in retrospect, but in the thick of it, I was plowing through. I was so excited about what I was creating, not only for myself and for my family, but for the community that I had just started to fall in love with. And through the store, I got to create my community. I got to meet people that I probably never would have met before, because when you move somewhere as an adult, I experienced this for the first time in London, when you move somewhere and you don't have the context of office mates, coworkers, or classmates to just have something in common with and have that jump start, right, for a friendship, it's really challenging. So what I realized that I created with the store was I got to say, hey, this is me and this is what I'm into. And anybody who that resonated with just walked in through the door. And it was awesome. I met amazing people who I believe are lifelong friends now. And the third year was wonderful. It was our best year yet. We got our sea legs in our third year. And so did I as a person, as a business owner, and as a mom, I felt like. But then by the fourth year, when I had my second daughter, something didn't feel right. I just felt like I was working in my dream instead of living my dream, if that makes any sense. I realized that my dream had changed. In the course of, growing and learning lessons as an entrepreneur for brick and mortar retail, and also growing and learning lessons as a parent, I realized that there were other things that I wanted and other things that were really speaking to me. And so I decided that it was time to move on from the store. It wasn't an easy decision, and it didn't happen quickly. And by the time I realized that I would sell the store, I wanted to sell the store so that I could stay in the community, it was a little too late, because then the pandemic happened as I was getting ready to put the store for sale. So there's just so much that went on there. We all know what went on, and everybody went through so many different experiences based on what you were doing at that time in life. And for me, it was the devastation that I couldn't keep it for the community that really helped build it and helped create my experience of Raleigh. The store I resented it in so many ways at some points, because I felt that I didn't have the time to go to brunch. I didn't have the time to go to that person's birthday party, or I didn't have the time and energy to go out to dinner after. All these people, all these wonderful people I was meeting, I didn't have time to hang out with them because I was always at the store. And I was too tired, and then I had to go home, and I had to be mom. So when I realized that actually was not the problem, it wasn't a problem at all, because I got the experience of living in Raleigh through the store. And that was, at the end of the day, a really beautiful and happy realization. So I closed the store in August 2020, and now here today, almost a year later, I get to, in this context and with this theme, I get to recognize and celebrate the fact that, and this applies to, I think, everyone that has spoken and everyone here in some way, shape, or form, that the journey that brought me to Raleigh, I'm standing here tonight because at some point 15 years ago, I made a decision on how I wanted to live, where I lived. And then in making those decisions, it just opened up a world of possibilities just through being open to opportunities and seeing them and taking inspired actions. They don't always work out the way you think they will, but that's the whole point, is you grow, you do things, and you keep going. So I went from somebody that believed I would live and die in LA, nothing else was out there, to someone who now knows that I can live and die anywhere home is. Thank you.